Yeah, I don't think Mother knew about this.
Uncle Marvin was strangled by his own beard.
Yeah, you never saw it coming. And welcome to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. This segment of the show is brought to you by MyHeritage.com, and we want to start out with a big shout out to our friends at KFXR, Talk Radio 1190 in Dallas, our latest Extreme Genes affiliate, and we are so proud to be part of the lineup with Patrick Davis, Anna DeHaro, and Diamond Gray at Talk Radio 1190. I know there's some great family history stories to come out of the Big D in the months and years ahead. Hey, our guest this week, interesting people. In fact, we talked about one of them a couple of weeks ago, Mary Ann Kester of Topeka, Kansas. Now, Mary Ann has gotten into something called grave witching. And she actually discovered a whole bunch of unmarked graves in a cemetery in Topeka. She'll tell you about the training. She'll tell you what she did, how she did it, and how you can do it, coming up starting in about 9 minutes or so. Then later in the show, Danya Williams and Brian Sheffy. These are what I would call Southern cousins who found an ancestor who lived pretty much to the max. I mean, over 110 years old, with an incredible number of descendants, and they're trying to find all the children and all the descendants. You're going to want to hear about this story coming up a little bit later on. Hey, I just want to remind you, by the way, to sign up for our weekly Genie newsletter. It is absolutely free. In fact, if you are a subscriber by the end of July, you are eligible for a drawing we're going to do for a free 1-hour consultation with David Allen Lambert, the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society, who is back from Scotland. He's on the line with us right now in Boston. How are you, David?
Hey, I'm doing great. Back from 12 days over in England, Scotland, and Wales with my oldest daughter, Brenda. Had a wonderful trip.
And did you have any big discoveries while you were there?
The best story, I think, to share with our listeners is the discovery of over 150 pages of documents on her fourth great-grandfather. This gentleman, Gibson Rennie, was killed accidentally in 1857 on the railway, slipped and fell. But what I didn't know about, his wife and 5 children tried to sue the railway for £1,000 in 1859. And all of these documents I found were tied up since then. So my daughter got to see them firsthand, the first time they saw the light of day in many, many years.
Wow. And was there more details on the accident than you had known previously?
Yeah, more details than I probably care to share with our listening audience out there. And it was gruesome how he died. But the nice thing about this is it intrigued my daughter so much that I think I now have another genealogist in the family.
How cool is that? Well, congratulations. Well, welcome back. You know, we got the 4th of July celebration going on right now, and this is a kind of a fun time. And David, I remember one time you were telling me about a unique find you had relating to one of your Patriot soldiers.
Yeah, that would be Captain Jonathan Poor. Jonathan was up in Essex County and was the captain of the 2nd Essex Militia. And I knew all his dates. I've been to his grave. You know, I'm even a member of the SAR through his service. However, about 20 years ago, while looking at a collection of papers up in Salem under pauper papers for Newbury, Massachusetts, I found something interesting. They weren't pauper papers at all. Because the name Poor was on the head of the documents,
yeah,
they were his family papers, including his Revolutionary War diary, Fish.
Wow. Did it have good detail in it?
Yeah, it talked about different battles, and one of the ones he goes into the details that the British are firing on us at the Heights, which would be Dorchester Heights. Amazing details of other names of people who served with him, but it gave me a clue into a darker side of the family history. He was a slave owner. He mentioned about hiring off one of his men, an African-American slave, to work in a field for a neighbor.
Yeah, and you were not aware of that previously.
I was not, and there's no other mention of him anywhere. So it's just one passing reference of a human life, which is really amazing.
We have 19 revolutionaries on our side, and that includes soldiers and those who did patriotic service. And one of mine was Elisha Gallaudet, and he was the engraver of the Continental Dollar. It was a coin that Congress was putting out because they figured that the United States, if it got its independence, would have to show that it could create its own currency in order to gain the support of the rest of the world. And so he was charged with making this engraving of the Continental Dollar. You remember the phrase, ain't worth a Continental?
That's true.
That was his.
Now, I hope you have a chest of these left over in your family archive to give to your children and grandchildren.
I wish I had one, because they're worth like over $20,000 each.
Well, I guess that old phrase doesn't mean the same in 2017, does it, though?
No, it does not. Okay, David, let's get on to our family histoire news. What do we have today?
Well, some breaking news from Salt Lake City with Family History Library has made the announcement that as of August 31st, they will no longer be renting microfilm to the centers around the world.
Wow.
Well, it's a shocking news, but they're actually going to have them all digitized by 2020, which is what the announcement says. So that's a positive thing for genealogists. Those stay-at-home men and women and kids who want to do it in their slippers and pajamas, finding their family trees, will be able to do it a lot easier now.
That's right.
Well, if you're interested in a document on your family history and we're willing to pay over $137,000, you may have been able to get Mary Daniels' 1692 testimony against her neighbor, Margaret Scott, who was accused and hanged for witchcraft in the Salem witch trials of 1692.
Yeah, this was up recently. In fact, it was one of the greatest documents I think I've ever heard historically, certainly relating to witchcraft.
It is the highest value document privately sold at auction on the witchcraft trials. And the thing about it is, where did it come from? Most of these are court documents. Was this squirreled away by a collector hundreds of years ago? As always, at NEHGS, we like to offer a value to our listeners at Extreme Genes. So if you use the checkout code EXTREME, you'll save $20 on membership. Well, that's about all I have for you this week, Fish. Happy 4th of July to you and yours and to all our listeners out there.
All right. Thank you so much, David. And once again, don't forget to sign up for our weekly Genie newsletter. It is absolutely free. And when you do that, by the end of the month, all people who are subscribing to the newsletter will be eligible for a drawing we're going to do for a 1-hour free consultation with David Allen Lambert in Boston. What an incredible prize. So come and join us. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Mary Ann Kester from Topeka, Kansas. She is the woman that's been going about grave witching in Topeka. What is it? How does she do it? How could you do it? She'll tell you about it coming up next in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Did you know that Family Search Family Tree is available through a powerful new mobile app experience? That's right. Now you can view, edit, and even add information to ancestors in your family tree whenever and wherever you are. You no longer need to wait to get home or make a date with your computer to view or update your family tree. You can add details to your tree when visiting with family or when capturing details from a trip to the cemetery. You can share new family history discoveries from classroom settings. You can even make the most of your time when waiting for doctor appointments or car repairs. Get started today by downloading the free Family Search Family Tree app to your Apple or Android device. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to get the Family Tree app for free. Exploring and expanding your family tree has never been more convenient. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to download the Family Search Family Tree mobile app today.
Legacy Tree Genealogists is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've been working with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins or heirs to property. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476. Call now or register online to get a free estimate. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries. legacytree.com.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andme.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andme.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andme.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andme.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andme.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andme.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andme.com.
And welcome back to America's Family History Show. It's Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. And this segment is brought to you by LegacyTree.com. And it was kind of interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I ran across a story and an associated video of a woman in Topeka, Kansas, who took up grave witching. What is that? What is she doing? Her name is Marianne Kester. She's on the line with me right now from Topeka. When did you get started in grave witching as part of your genealogical efforts, Marianne?
I actually only started about a month or so ago. I was editing a class from the Topeka Genealogical Society. They were doing a refresher course on how to do gravestone rubbings, and then one of the segments was on witching for graves, which shows them how to locate a grave if it doesn't have a marker on it.
Wow. What was your first thought when you heard about that?
My first thought was, this has got to be similar to what my grandfather taught me when I was young on how to look for water. He had a farm, and he was out actually at that time with a willow branch using it. But he also said that it could be done with coat hangers or other things. So he was showing me how to find water. He needed to dig a new well at the time, and I actually located the water for the new well.
Now, I'm thinking, if I heard something like that, I'm thinking that's kind of weird, because I did not grow up on a farm. I grew up in a suburban area just outside of New York City. And I think for a lot of people, maybe in urban or suburban areas, this is kind of a foreign thing. But I was just looking up different terms for this, because you referred to it as grave witching, which I think is pretty common. Other terms for it, dowsing, divining. This one I really like from somewhere in the United States, doodle bugging. I guess it has to do with looking for oil. And there's water finding, water witching, or water dowsing. And then they talk about the use of the dowsing rod or the divining rod. What do they call a grave witching rod?
It can be known as a divining rod or a dowsing rod as well.
Okay.
I've not heard the term doodle bugging before.
I hadn't either.
That's totally new to me. It has the same principles,
sure,
I assume, but that's not what I do. And the reason I got started in this, I am a member of the Friends of the Historic Topeka Cemetery. It's a new group that's reorganized. It was defunct for a while, and we are a nonprofit group. We have projects at the cemetery that we were looking to do to make improvements for things that don't have funding. One of the things that we wanted to do was to mark the graves of children. We have a couple of segments within that cemetery. There are close to 800 burials of children, many of which do not have markers.
Now, this you knew from the records of the cemetery, right?
Records of the cemetery. We have names, we have plot numbers, we know the section that the babies are in. There are some markers within those two sections, but not all of the graves are marked. And we were looking to do a project that would honor the graves of children that were buried 75 plus years ago.
Now, are they all buried together in a section just for children? Are these abandoned children? Are these orphaned kids? What was the story?
We're not sure of all of the details on it. Most of the children were probably malnourished, poor medical care. Many could have been during the Depression. Some would have been due to illness like smallpox, possibly from families moving from place to place. I have a personal experience in that my mom's brother is one of the people on this list. And it just kind of amazed me when I found that out. So I will be taking care of a marker for him. I always knew about him, but didn't know where or anything. So what we're trying to do is to get people to donate to purchase a headstone.
Sure.
But in order to do that, we needed to find the exact location of the grave. We know that they're in rows, and we know that they're in sections. We know that they're in this area because we have the names and we have the locations of the lot.
So here comes Mary Ann with her divining rods from the grave witching class at the Topeka Genealogical Society.
That is correct.
So what was the reaction when you showed up at the cemetery and you said, I got my rods? What were they made of, by the way?
They're made out of coat hangers, of all things.
Okay.
You take a couple of coat hangers and you cut about halfway down the arch of the coat hanger so that you cut the hook off of it, and then you bend one end out straight and you leave one end curved, but you straighten it so it's like a handle.
Okay.
So that it just lays across your hand. And it takes 2 hangers in order to do this.
All right. Now, could you use any material? Because as you mentioned, you used a willow stick on your grandfather's farm back in the day. Does the material matter?
I'm not sure. I have not attempted it with a willow stick or an elm or anything like that. I know that they make professional rods that you can buy, copper rods, to do this with. But a coat hanger is just the most common thing as long as it's made out of metal. You know, the plastic ones definitely would not work.
Okay, so what do you do with it? Now you show up, you've got your coat hangers. Hi, I'm here. Let's go find the graves. You step out about a month ago, and how does it work? Do you walk in rows, or do you determine a starting point and an end point? Do you do it in grids?
I used rows because there were a few headstones already there in the 2 sections.
Okay.
What I did was I started just below, and unfortunately I did have to walk on the graves. I try not to do that because, you know, it's somebody's family member. It's an honored, sacred place.
Yes.
But in order to do this project, it was necessary. But there is a grid system of how the lots are to be laid out. You can find a headstone in the row that you're walking, but if you look to your left or right, there are also the other rows that may or may not have a headstone that crisscrosses a line so that you can try to get a bearing on what you're doing. And as I did that, I would get a hit, which is what we call it, with the rods that I was holding. You don't grasp them tight in your hand. They're loose.
Okay.
You keep your thumbs up and your hands loose, and it just kind of lays across the 4 fingers that you have of your hand.
Okay.
And you can use your small finger, your little finger, to try to balance or keep it from falling out of your hand, but you don't hold on to the rod at all. It's a balance thing. And you keep your arms bent to your side, and it's just your forearms that you use to do this with.
Does it matter your frame of mind when you go to do this, or does the rod just kind of take on a life of its own?
You know, I concentrate pretty hard when I do this, but the rod itself kind of takes over. I'm not sure if it's a magnetism or exactly why it works. I can't explain it. I do know that as you're walking, the rods will cross.
Really?
You know, and you walk slowly to do this. You know, you get to where you think the grave may be, and you kind of stop and you wait a little bit and see. Just watch the rods. You don't pay attention to anything else as far as surroundings. You're just watching the rod. And if you're in the right place, the rods will start to move, and you just kind of pay attention to it. And if they don't move very far and then they go back, you take another half step or step forward, and they may or may not go ahead and cross over each other.
So you would know then at that point you're in the right place. And then what do you put a marker there and say, okay, here's one?
Yes. In fact, there was a gentleman that wrote up to me while I was doing this in the cemetery, and he asked me a couple of questions. And I said, well, if you're not doing anything, you certainly can help me. And he said, well, I don't have any plans. And so he followed me with the markers, and he stuck the markers in whenever I would find a grave. So that made it a little easier for me. I could just concentrate on what I was doing. And he seemed to enjoy himself as he was doing that.
Absolutely. Well, would you find that the divining rods would accurately mark a regular row? I mean, they were exactly so many feet apart in the right line, that type of thing?
Yes. In fact, when I was with the genealogy class, we went out to the cemetery and we witched, or whatever term you want to use, for already marked graves so that we had some practice time in. So I practiced probably a half hour or so before I actually went on, and later on that next week went out to witch for the babies.
Did you find that the markers that you put in there actually corresponded with the plat map of the cemetery?
Yes, they did.
That's incredible. So you could actually do this in some places where cemeteries have been completely lost, potentially, right?
It's a possibility, yes. It's very possible, especially in forgotten places or rural areas where farmland is taken over. They've kept a cemetery, but there may or may not be markers for everyone that's there. One of the other things I found is one of the sections I was really kind of concerned about because I was getting more hits than what I thought was possible for that area. So we were just marking away, putting the flags down, and I went back. I didn't have the list of who was buried where at that time. I didn't want to see that.
Sure.
I wanted to do it cold so that I knew I was doing the best I could. Went back and looked at the list later on because I needed to check off the headstones that were already there and then coordinate the others with what I had found. And what I found was that in this one section, there were up to 4 graves in one space.
That must have blown your mind a little bit.
It did, because I would have a hit for a boy or a hit for a girl, and I'm like...
Wait a minute. You could tell the difference?
Yes, you can.
Really? From what? Just the feel of it?
By the way the rods cross.
Huh. That's just the most amazing thing I have ever heard. Well, she's Mary Ann Kester. She is the grave witch. Can I call you that, Mary Ann? Fair enough?
I guess so.
From Topeka, Kansas, and she's done some amazing things. You can see the video of the news report that was done in her hometown television station and read the article. It's on extremegenes.com. Thanks for teaching us a little about this amazing method, Mary Ann. I'm absolutely intrigued and would like to try it sometime.
I appreciate the phone call, and I'm glad I could do this for you. And sure, I'd be glad to teach you anytime.
Sounds great. Mary Ann Kester from Topeka, Kansas. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
And coming up next, we're going to talk to a couple of Southern cousins who discovered an ancestor who lived a real long time and had a whole lot of kids. They're trying to track down all the cousins, all the descendants. Coming up next on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show in 5 minutes.
Scientific studies have proven that youth who know even a little bit about their family history perform better academically and have a greater sense of personal confidence and stability. Genealogy is its own incredible superpower that arms our children with super strength. But how do you get your child or grandchild interested in studying their family history? That kind of stuff is just for grandmas, right? Not anymore. ZapTheGrandmaGap.com leaps the generation gap in a single bound. Author Janet Hovorka provides you with useful and timely advice on helping the young people in your life become engaged in their own family history. Janet has an entire collection of books to inspire the young and the young at heart in fun, interactive ways. She also offers creative tips and advice on her blog and in her free weekly newsletter. Stop by ZapTheGrandmaGap.com today to sign up for Janet's free email newsletter with 52 weeks of easy tips, free downloads, and order your set of resource books and workbooks. Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chart Masters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartMasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chart Masters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style of genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chart Masters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chart Masters today at FamilyChartMasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chart Masters will give the greatest care to your family history.
You have found us. It's America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes, at extremegenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. And this segment is brought to you by 23andme.com DNA. And I'm excited to talk to my next two guests who are on the phone with me right now. You know, we all run into that story back there, the one that just kind of grips us and says, you know, I've got to find out more about this. I got to dig deep. And you just get a little bit of the fur on the cat's tail and you start hauling in the entire cat. And Danya Papoose Williams is on the line. Your name tells me that there's a story behind that, Danya. And where are you located?
I'm located in Washington, D.C.
Washington, and I know up in Boston we got our other guest, Brian Sheffy. How are you two related, by the way?
We are related through Danya's mother.
Well, you're both descendants of a guy named Moses Williams. And what an interesting character. Let's start with a little bit of information, because as we get into this story, I think everybody's going to be more and more amazed. Who found Moses, first of all, Danya?
Me. I found Moses by accident, actually, on newspapers.com. It was talking about a man who had 45 children from 2 wives, and that he was still living as well as his children.
And when was he still living?
That paper was written in I believe it was 36. Actually, no, it had to have been a little earlier than that, because he looked around 50, but he was in his 60s or 70s.
And he lived to be how old?
He lived to be 115, so he died in 1884 at the age of 115.
So born around 1769. So he's born a few years before the American Revolution. He lived to see the emancipation, and he had 45 kids. Now, what's the breakdown? How many children per wife here? He had 2 wives.
Brian?
You have a better handle on that one than me.
Okay, he has 40 girls and 5 boys.
40 girls, 5 boys.
Between 2 wives. And the first wife had 22 children, whereas the second wife, he had 23. So one wife had 20 girls and 2 boys. The other wife had 20 girls and 3 boys. Brian and I connect through one of his sons, Moses Jr., who was born in 1796.
That's incredible.
He's our 4 times great-grandfather.
4 times. Okay, so you found this connection, Danya, and you started talking with Brian, obviously, and now you guys are having a big project here to identify all of these children. Now, how's the work distribution going on this?
Well, it's going pretty well. I mean, we have another 4 cousins from Edgefield, both black and white, who are working with us to do the research.
Okay.
But it was the funniest conversation I had with Danya, because she basically said, "Are you sitting down?" And then she sent me the newspaper article about Moses. I went kind of quiet for about a minute, and Danya knows me really, really well by now. So it was just the enormity of it that just absolutely floored me. But I was up for it. I wanted to find these 45 children.
45
children.
We
kind of passed it on, because when I saw it, I immediately said, "I'm not doing this, Brian." I just told him, "I'm not doing this." And he just was quiet. He was just quiet, and I knew that was his brain, like, okay, let me organize this, because we're getting ready to get this. I hear her telling me no, but I'll get with her tomorrow and we'll get this situated.
This is like 3 generations worth of work in 1 generation.
Yep.
Absolutely. Because, again, I mean, part of it was all of the children were born during the slavery period, so they would have been enslaved themselves.
Okay.
We were looking for 40 women, because with our family, everyone tended to get married. So that was going to be trying to figure out 40 maiden names, plus the elder Moses was having children, we reckon, between 1785 and 1834. So he's having children at the same time that his eldest children were having children.
So he had kids over a 49-year period?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
He had, his grandchildren may have had children along with him.
At the same time. This is like Mick Jagger, you guys. Right. I mean, he had a kid after he had a great-grandkid. So out of these 45 children, the 40 girls, the 5 boys, how many have you been able to identify so far?
7.
7.
And a host of grandchildren.
I bet you have. So you're basically trying to bring the entire family forward. That's the ultimate goal, is to identify all of them. A very difficult goal for anybody, yet alone in a slave family situation. And back in that time, really challenging. What have you learned about those 7?
We know that they liked using the name Moses.
Okay.
All of them.
Right, in their children.
Exactly. So it's a name that's even being used to this day. It's been carried down that long. Part of the story that's really amazing is some of the family who owned them were also their blood relations. So they tended to keep the enslaved people who were their blood relations within the family, as opposed to anything else. And even though over the generations they kind of got split, we get the sense that they were still in contact with each other because the family was very social within itself. So you can imagine you were a personal slave to one of the white slave owners. They were going to go visit their cousins or their siblings. Well, they would bring their servants with them. So we think that that's how the family kind of kept in touch with one another. And at the end of slavery, we see them, a lot of them living very close to one another.
If not on the exact same land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those bonds were still really, really strong.
So there's a lot of hope, really, that you're going to be able to extend this as you start to figure out who are the people associated with the folks you've already identified.
Yeah, one of the things which makes this really great is the fact that the Williams family, the white Williams family, were meticulous with their records. And this is what made it somewhat easy for Brian to actually do a handwritten tree to actually chart the slaves and those that were enslaved and who they were passed on to. And now he's done this wonderful job on Ancestry where it's not possible to do, where you actually see who owns who and how they're owned and what generation they were owned and so on and so forth.
Wow.
It's an awesome thing.
This is like a lifetime project, isn't it, guys?
Oh, it is. Well, especially because, like I said, the story starts in Virginia. He was in Virginia for 30 years before he moved with his master and mistress first to North Carolina and then South Carolina. So he had children in Virginia, he had children in North Carolina, and then he had children in South Carolina.
And then many of them moved around, I would assume, over time.
They were spread through the whole of the South by the time the Civil War happened.
So how does DNA play into this? Have you used that as one of your tools?
Oh, Brian, that's definitely you.
Yeah, it's an absolutely invaluable tool in terms of just going through who we're matching in terms of DNA, looking at the family names in their list. Then there's a wonderful service called GEDmatch, getting people to upload the results to that. And we just literally look at the segments that we share and just slowly working out what are the Williams segments or the other families that they're related to, because a colonial family, a lot of cousins married a lot of cousins. And in our family, that happened over about a 400-year period.
So we're talking endogamy here, kind of messing up the DNA challenge a little bit.
Oh, yes, because it happened on the white side of the family, and then they passed those genes on to their mixed-race children, who themselves started marrying cousins. That's how we're related to pretty much everyone in Edgefield, or like what we call the Old 96 region of South Carolina.
Right, and that's what I was getting ready to say to you. The greatest thing about finding Moses is the fact that he will probably end up connecting us to 2/3 of that entire county. Because he has so many children, and because we come from a line of family members who, at one point, especially during the 1800s or mid to late 1800s, they were having double-digit children anyway. And then the fact that they were marrying and remarrying into each other, he actually is probably the common ancestor to at least 2/3 of Edgefield, South Carolina.
Well, what an incredible story, you guys. Danya Papoose Williams, Brian Sheffy, thanks for coming on the show. I am looking forward to hearing about when you have your first really big reunion of the Williams family after all the incredible work you've done. Keep me up to speed on what's happening with this. It's an incredible story.
Oh, thank
you.
We talk preservation with Tom Perry coming up next on Extreme Genes.
Legacy Tree Genealogist is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've been working with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins or heirs to property. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476. Call now or register online to get a free estimate. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries. LegacyTree.com.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andme.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andme.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andme.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andme.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andme.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andme.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andme.com.
Well, Genies, my personal family history researcher who sends me new information day and night has sent me some incredible new records and newspaper stories lately. Hi, it's Fisher, and the name of that researcher, by the way, is myheritage.com. It's the hardest working service in genealogy, looking for records of your family 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yes, even while you're sleeping. How does it work? MyHeritage uses hundreds of algorithms to match your ancestors to over 5 billion records from around the world, and with 97% accuracy. That means no more wasting time figuring out whether or not a match really is a match. I hear from listeners all the time who are shocked with how much information is accurately found and then passed along. And now MyHeritage will translate your ancestors' names into English or any other language you like from foreign records. In fact, it works with over 40 languages. No one else does this. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned researcher, you need myheritage.com. And welcome back to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes, and extremegenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, and it is time to talk preservation with our preservation authority, Tom Perry from tmcplace.com. Hi, Tom. How are you? Welcome back.
Great to be back.
And this segment is brought to you by FamilySearch.org, and we have an email here from Dominic, and he said, I wanted to ask about your video game disc repair service that you offer. I had no idea you did that, Tom.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, I recently bought a pre-owned Xbox One game, and I saw how dirty the disc is, and there may be some scratches not visible to the naked eye. I wanted to know if, in particular, you offer the option to clean, repair Xbox One discs. Well, that's kind of a different thing than we usually talk about. Obviously, this would apply also to discs that contain family history material.
Oh, absolutely. The thing with discs, whether it's a DVD or a CD or a Blu-ray, whether it's a ROM, a data disc, playable video, music, any of those kind of things, they all have the same architecture. And within those kind of discs, there's two kinds of discs. You have the one that we call one-offs, like you buy it and you record it on your own machine, or you send us one of your VHS tapes and we put it on a disc and send it back to you. Those are all considered one-off discs, which means they're made out of dye. And so the zeros and the ones, what it does is it's kind of like an LCD watch. You can see the little numbers. You know, everything's made up of an 8, but only certain parts are triggered. So the die is exactly the same way. It turns the die on or off. That's why if you take a one-off disc and put it on your dashboard or even your kitchen, any place where the sun's going to sit on it all day, even if it doesn't get that hot, just that light, the intensity of light is like a laser, and it could erase your disc.
Wow.
So you always want to be careful. You never leave any kind of a one-off disc with the die side up where there's going to be light on it, whether it's in your car, even if your car's air-conditioned. That can cause all kinds of problems.
But this guy's got a scratch.
Right, that guy's got a scratch. Since it's an Xbox game, that's what's called a replicated disc. They make, hundreds of thousands at a time. They actually have a piece of carbonate that the zeros and the ones, they're actually part of the disc itself. So those aren't ever going to go away. You can leave it in the sun, nothing's ever going to happen to them because they're permanently in there. It's not the die turning on and off. So when you get a scratch, the things are based on where the scratch is, what direction the scratch is going, how deep the scratch is, and which kind of a disc you have. For instance, if you have what they call a radial scratch, which goes around the disc,
right,
so it's curved, it's not just straight, those are the worst kind, because when your disc is being read by the laser, it's reading it in that direction. If it's got like 10 pieces of data missing, especially on a game disc, it's not going to know what to do. On a CD player, it can lock up and go brrrr and make those kind of noises.
That's right, yeah.
So it's locked. It's saying, what am I supposed to do now? It has no idea. And then to even complicate that more, if you have a one-off disc and you put 1 hour on it, your zeros and your ones are going to be pretty big. If you go to 2 hours, they're half the size. 4 hours, half the size.
Right.
8.
Because of the compression.
Exactly. The zeros and ones get smaller and smaller and smaller. So a little teeny hairline scratch on a 1 hour disc is going to be like nothing. It's like not even really there. But if you have an 8 hour disc, you're going to have major troubles. The biggest thing you want to do is not read what the internet tells you to do. I've seen things from cleaning with toothpaste, cleaning with different kinds of detergents.
Yes.
Never do that. Never use anything abrasive unless you really know what you're doing and you have a backup copy of it. What we do when we resurface the disc, we actually take off a little bit of the polycarbonate, just like you would on a fine piece of furniture that's got varnish on it. We take that off. And so every time you do that, it's going to get thinner and thinner and thinner. And game discs are the worst because they don't start in the middle and go out like an audio or video disc would. It jumps around because it needs to see what level you're on. So the scratches can be on a place you never play, or it could be right where it starts up the disc, and nothing's going to work for you.
All right, Dominic, hopefully that answers your question. And when you think about these things, Tom, I mean, we digitize so much material. That is not the end of the process, is it, for preservation, just the digitization?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, you know what? That's a good idea. Let's talk about that in the next segment about how we can save your photos and your digitized photos.
All right, coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history.
When was the last time you heard your grandmother's voice or saw your family enjoying life back in the 1950s or 60s? If the reason is you haven't known what to do with your old recordings, videos, and films, here's your answer. The Multimedia Center in Salt Lake City.
We brought in a video project to the Multimedia Center, and overnight they duplicated it to DVD so we could meet our deadline.
The Multimedia Center, 2870 East, 3300 South, Salt Lake City. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Call 801-483-1717 or go to transferduplication.com.
Genies, it's Fisher with exciting news. The Weekly Genie, the official newsletter of Extreme Genes, is here. It's your Monday morning briefing on what's happening in the world of genealogy and family history and on Extreme Genes. Get all the details of jaw-dropping stories of discovery and keep up with the latest techniques in family history research. Get to know more about your favorite Extreme Genes personalities, and it's free. Sign up for the Weekly Genie now at extremegenes.com or the Extreme Genes Facebook page. And when you do, you'll receive David Allen Lambert's Top 10 Tips for Beginning Genealogists from the Chief Genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society. Sign up today for the Weekly Genie. You know, there is that mindset that once we have digitized our photographs, our videos, our old home movies, that's kind of the end of the drill. Hi, it's Fisher. It's Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show at extremegenes.com. I've got Tom Perry here from tmcplace.com, our preservation authority. And Tom, really, it's just the beginning of the process once you've digitized, because there's so much you can do with that material, but you also have to make sure that the work you've done gets preserved.
Exactly, and that's where we run into a big problem. People come to us with two questions. They say, okay, now that all my stuff's digitized, what do I do with it now? Well, first off, you get a good program like Heritage Collectors, and that will allow you to do all kinds of cool stuff, make calendars, make books, do all kinds of neat stuff. But your disc itself, how are you going to protect that? And people, like you said in the first segment, they just assume that everything's fine. That is not true. Let me give you a really sad story. We had a friend of ours, an actor, and he finally got tapes from all the different things he was in so he could make a collection of everything to send out to prospective clients. And he did all this, and then right when he was ready to go to one of his sessions, he popped out the disc and popped it into his DVD player. Nothing. And he's going, oh my goodness, what happened? So he brings it to us. We tried it in every machine we had. We tried doing disc recovery, everything, and it was gone. And what happens, a lot of discs that you buy in the grocery stores, and you say, well, why are these only 10, 15, 20 cents a piece, maybe 30 cents? Because of the dye, the quality of the dye. The better discs like tile units, they have a better dye in them, so they last longer. So you can have all your stuff digitized, and say maybe you did it 6 years ago. I would be checking those discs and make sure they're still working. And if they are still working, I would go and make a new copy of them, because then you've got a newer one with the dye. We have people come in that can't play discs. We try duplicating it, and sometimes they'll play after that. But you got to be careful. It doesn't last forever. In fact, it's funny that an old VHS tape, or an old audio tape, or a wire recording, or a reel-to-reel tape is going to outlast a standard disc.
Boy, that makes sense. In fact, the better we've gotten at preserving, it seems the lifespan of what we've created gets shorter and shorter.
Exactly, just like our attention span.
Yeah.
As the older we get, the shorter it becomes. So what you need to do, we talk about this all the time, and I can't emphasize this enough. Whether you have an iPhone, whether you have photos, CDs, DVDs, anything, you want to have a hard copy of it, like a disc. You know, you want to have possibly a thumb drive, like a USB drive. You also want to have them on your hard drive, and you want to have them in at least one cloud, possibly two clouds. Like if you're a Mac guy, use the iCloud and Dropbox, so you've got them backed up, so nothing's going to happen to them. Or if one of them breaks down, you're going to have other copies. And we tell people also, make copies, send them to your family out of the area. However, if you're using a cheap disc and you send them all over the world, it doesn't matter if the dye dies, the dye's dead.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you keep that hard drive, you keep the computer, you keep your cloud, so you can go back and do all these kind of things. And it's worth spending a little bit more money and getting a tile unit disc. If you go to a local big box store and they do all your conversions for you or whatever, that's fine. However, some of them say, oh, yeah, these are gold discs. Well, if they truly are gold, they have some problems in some of the newer machines because the gold isn't as reflective as some of the other materials.
Interesting.
You never know for sure what they're using. Get a good tile unit disc, buy them from us, buy them online, make sure they're legit, and back up all the discs you've ever made on tile units, so then you know you've got at least a 100-year disc, or go to an M disc, which are kind of a cross between a duplicated disc and a replicated disc, which are called 1,000-year discs, and they're awesome way to go, and that's the best way to go, and then put those away as preservation.
All right. Wow. Great stuff to consider. And, of course, if you want to review anything that Tom just said, go on our website, extremegenes.com, and check out the transcript, because I'm going to be reviewing that. I know it. Thanks so much, Tom. See you next week.
My pleasure.
Hey, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. I never imagined I'd get an on-air lesson about grave witching. Hey, if you missed any of the show today, make sure you catch the podcast. It's on iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and extremegenes.com. Hey, and don't forget also to sign up for our weekly Genie newsletter. It's absolutely free. Those who are subscribers in the month of July are eligible for a drawing we're going to do for a free consultation from David Allen Lambert. Talk to your friends, tell them about the show, and remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.